Buzz with Jess Lujan.
And we're back with my in-studio guest, my first guest, of course, of 2014, Johnny Sublon, the myth, the man, the myth, the legend, Johnny Sublon. Johnny, we got some pictures here, of course, when you went to Vietnam with former Governor Carlos Camacho, and we'll show the audience, of course, pictures as we talk over that as well. Tell us how that came about.
Well, I was in college in the States at that time period, and I've already released my first album, Dalai Nini, and then of course Senator Eddie Duenas, who was the press secretary for the governor.
His pictures in the background in one of the shots here.
Came to the States and looking for me to invite me through Governor Carlos Camacho was inviting me to go to Vietnam to visit the Guam soldiers, and I readily accepted it, and that was the best experience, and to me the contribution that I can give to our soldiers.
And at that time you weren't, I mean, because at that time, you know, while that was happening, I mean, I know there was, you know, let me see, Bob Hope was doing USO shows, and we saw some shows here, of course. I was able, you know, because we befriended, of course, some military folks, and we watched some of those shows up at Anderson Air Force Base. But you weren't a part of USO.
No, I mean, not at all. Yeah. I was part of the Governor Carlos Camacho.
And exclusively, you guys went to see our troops, our boys. I can't say gals at the time, the boys, the men that were out there in Vietnam.
Well, I'm just so glad that I went there to contribute what I can to boost the morale. A song came about on that called "The Christmas Odyssey in Vietnam," which I wrote, and that explains very much our trip. And there was a lot of emotion in that song. I could not sing that again today, you know, because I remember some of the peers, my peers, because I was 20, 21 at that time, and I've met a lot of friends and relatives who were at war at that time and didn't come back. Yeah. So, but to make a long story short, I think that's a great thing that Guam Governor Carlos Camacho had done, and I was just happy to be part of that, to contribute.
And that wasn't your only trip, right?
No, I went there twice, 69, 70, you know, and the governor promised to come back. As long as this war is going on, he'll continue to come back, and I think he went there a couple times.
And of course, at the time, of course, our boys that were back there were, I mean, they knew your songs, so your songs were, I mean, this was very, I'm sure this was something they were longing for when they wanted you to sing, so you couldn't go over there without singing all your hits.
Oh, well, I sang from 7 o'clock in the morning to you know, to certain time periods where we went to visit the guys in different parts of Vietnam, from Da Nang to Nha Trang to Ben Hoa, and as stated in my song, and different times. So I was happy to do that, and even more, really magufo paugusa nu. I'm very happy to see our Guam soldiers who are back. Came from that war, even today, and I'm an honorary member of the Mangilo Vietnam veterans.
And Johnny, over the years as well, I mean, again, you have a certain influence, the type of music that you continue to sing and play, and of course, when you start, there are other influences based on the time as well. I mean, you know, we jump up to here now today, we got a lot of R&B, rap influences, and again, reggae. In the Chamorro version as well. How do you feel now when you see that, you know, you're a part of this from the very beginning, and to see the evolving of Chamorro music here in Guam, where it's at today?
Yeah. Well, you know, we're just explain. I mean, it just shows you how talented our young people here today, and even in the past. Because when I was growing up, I was able to do country western. I was able to perform, you know, rock and roll, the Beatles, different things. So we were really influenced by what the radio station gives us.
Sure.
So I was just fortunate to shall we say, be a versatile singer, and I explained that, and I produced that on my album as being diversified, but.
Sure.
I was also groping to find out what's the actual Chamorro music, you know. So I got a lot of influences and advice from older folks that I met at my time period in 67, 68 when I was doing my research that lived in 1930s and 1940s. So I had pre-war advice as what type of instrumentations they were using at that time. Stroking, you know, so Daling Nini came out of that, and then I started developing or evolving, and I made Chamorro Zoo, which is these are the two albums that are still selling very strong, and I think a good representation of what I think might be a time period, you know.
Sure,
and Chamorro music.
That's fantastic, and actually. What we've also seen in its evolving is, of course, at the time you said you were part of an international cultural group, right? And you were doing Polynesian, you were doing different type of dances and things of that nature. But again, as when they said at the time, Johnny, can you bring us some Guamese songs and cultural experiences? You know, I remember even in elementary school when we performed and we did some dances, we were limited to stick dances. Stick dances. So now we have all these groups, different, you know,
we have an organized
cultural groups and stuff. Right. You know, of course, these are dance or interpretation dances, but it is who we are at this point,
That's
right?
Correct.
I mean, and so, you know, this is part of that whole thing, in the entertainment, the culture, and the you know, as much as we say, it's not really practiced. It's still alive. It's still alive. It's still very much alive.
I was very fortunate to meet our congressman, senator. Senator also at that time, but. Mr. Carlos Taitano, yes, who actually introduced me to Tautotano period, because I was just singing songs of contemporary Chamorro songs, you know, from 1900 on up. So I was really grateful that he introduced me. I even dedicated my whole 1 year of my life learning about Tautotano period in 1983, and became part of the task force of the Guahu Tautotano pageant. So. He's my mentor in ancient Chamorro stuff, Chamorro cultural, Chamorro songs and legends and stuff. So I became, you know, very supportive to these organized dance groups that are very, we call it perpetuating Chamorro culture.
No, this is fantastic. I sure hope, I mean, you know, in a couple of years we're going to have here the FESPAC, 2016
festival.
I think it is. I hope you are a major part of that, because to not have pioneers such as yourself, the Jimmy D's and things like that, you know, to be a part of this and to highlight will be a disservice, you know, for our culture. And this is my opinion, because people like yourselves again have paved a way for a lot of people. You know, one thing I didn't hear from you, Johnny, at the time, because when we hear artists that start back there, artists of color at the time, right? They had the stigma of the discrimination of color. Did you experience that at the time as a brown artist?
Of course, you know, we all did, especially in California. At that particular time period, I mean, they just had the march in 1965 in Alabama, you know, with Reverend Martin Luther King. So I was there, you know, in America when all these things were happening, and Los Angeles was a little bit more diversified, but. Yes, of course. When you get into Hollywood, they still had that issue.
Yeah.
Hispanics were not prevalent at that time, or
And
they were prevalent,
of
but
course, they
in
looked
the
at you
music
as
industry.
Hispanic, right?
Of course, yeah. They looked
Yeah.
at me,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and said, "What is this guy trying to
Yeah.
penetrate?"
Yeah.
And of course, Richie Valens was just starting
Sure,
out.
sure,
Yeah,
sure.
and,
Yeah.
But yes, I did experience some
Yeah.
of those. Yeah.
Yeah, no, not because
Yeah.
when we listen to, you know, again, the pioneers of
Mm-hmm.
music, to how they broke through, you know.
Well, my
that,
good
yeah.
friend Jimmy D.
Jimmy D.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why he changed his name. His singing name was Jimmy D, but
Yeah.
because he wanted to get more
A wider audience.
wider
and,
audience.
and,
that's
and
correct.
not to be stigmatized
Right,
with, yeah.
and he was successful.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
in Newport, Long Beach, L.A. area.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's great to be able to hear the history of yourself, and again, as you said, man, this is new to me about Jimmy D. How it was, because it's Jimmy D. Flores, right?
Yes.
So he shortened it for that reason.
Well, actually,
for
Jimmy
that time.
Flores,
Jimmy Flores,
but
Jimmy D. Yeah. Okay.
So Jimmy D. Musical band.
Yeah.
You know.
Johnny, we're gonna pay some bills back,
Okay.
and you know that when we come back, because we're gonna say goodbye when we come back.
Okay.
You're Dallang Nanny album.
Yeah. We'll talk about that.
Well,
Okay.
not just talk about it. Can you sing a couple of verses as we go out?
Well,
Think about it. We'll be right back.
think about it.